Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the Monday Mashup brought to you by the Upper Tier on YouTube. Joining me tonight for our Monday Mashup show, Darren. How we doing, Darren?
Tastes good, Niall. I'm all good.
Always
Tastes just a little bit sweeter after tonight's result, doesn't it?
Oh, I don't know, sick. I'll run down through these results.
Will I just try it again? Hang on. Let me see if it tastes as good the second time.
It's normally a bit sour, isn't it? It wouldn't be that sweet, would it?
Oh, that tastes good, pal. like a hug off a dead relative.
A hug off a dead relative. Well, anyway, I'm sure our viewers are wondering, this is the Monday Mashup going out on a Wednesday. The reason we're doing this over Christmas is because we had a round of fixtures this evening as well as yesterday. So we said we wanted to include them all rather than doing multiple shows. So a quick rundown through the fixtures or the results. Man City 6, Leicester 3. Certainly a game of two halves without a shadow of a doubt.
Absolutely. Was a mental game of football, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It really was. Wow.
Norwich 0, Arsenal 5. Arsenal running riot against Norwich.
Norwich booking their flights back to the Championship as we speak.
Absolutely. There's a sale on at the moment on Ryanair, so they can take advantage of it.
They'll get cheap ones.
Tottenham 3, Palace 0.
Yeah, great result for Spurs, wasn't it? Really good result.
Yeah, until you look at today's, but
until you look at today,
I'm gonna get to that fixture, and then I'm gonna drop something that it'll be a very interesting observation. West Ham 2, Southampton 3. Poor result for the Hammers.
Poor result for the Hammers, but again, big performance from Southampton. Our boy Ralph, I'm a big fan of Ralphie. He always manages to grind out these results against teams that you just think these are going to roll Southampton over and tickle them. And all of a sudden, the game's over and he finds something and you go, geez, Ralph, how'd you do that, pal? Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah. Aston Villa 1, Chelsea 3. Aston Villa came out of the burners pretty quick, but Chelsea clawed them back in with a number of penalties.
Yeah, they did. Jorginho, the man from 12 yards as usual, wasn't it? Thought Lukaku did very, very well when he came on, I must say. Changed the game completely in Chelsea's favour. That's the kind of Lukaku that Chelsea are looking for on a weekly basis. That could, if he could arrive weekly and put in those kind of performances, you could possibly see Chelsea back in the title race. Possibly.
One that you called on the preview show. Brighton 2, Brentford 0. A great shout.
Yeah. I had it in every accumulator I had over the weekend. I just said, listen, he'd had a number of weeks off with the Brighton lads. I think tactically would have got an awful lot of points across. And I mean, they had numbers back and stuff like that in the squad. And we like what he does. We like how Brighton play. I just thought it was set up for him. Because I think obviously Brentford are missing a few still. And they've been kind of ticking along, picking up points here and there. And I don't think the game meant as much to Brentford as it did to Brighton. You know what I mean? I think they could afford to lose it and not worry too much at the minute. So I think Brighton were going to be big in that one, and as they proved,
Yeah, they did create a number of chances though, Brentford. They did scare Brighton a couple of times, all right, but
they did.
Just hadn't got the quality at the up end of the pitch. Newcastle 1, Man United 1.
It was absolutely horrendous. It was horrific. I had watched the Newcastle City game the week before, and I spoke to you about how almost bored I was watching it because City were just on a different level. And then I watched my own side, United, go and play that same Newcastle side. And for large parts, we were absolutely dominated by Newcastle.
Yeah.
It was scary. And you're kind of thinking, if this is what we're aspiring to be, surely somebody's going to go, you know what, lads, this gap is a lot wider than even we think at the minute. Because maybe there's a sticky plaster mentality where if you get top 4 and City maybe win the league, you're only 2 spots away from them. 2 spots could be 30 points, but it could also be light years. They're so far ahead of United. Watching how they broke Newcastle down at absolute will, and when they felt like it and wanted to, compared to what we kind of struggled to do for large parts of the game. I mean, I don't think most United fans would argue our man of the match was David De Gea.
Has been for most of the season.
And he's had a very, very very good season so far. He really, really has. Yeah, it's shocking. It really was shocking.
Yeah, we are going to do a combined 11 show coming up on the new channel. And I'd be surprised if most of us have anyone other David De Gea in as our goalkeeper. I mean, the only boy running them close is probably Ramsdale, isn't it? But Alisson and Ederson haven't touched both these boys this season, have they?
No, I don't think so. Ederson has had very little to do. I mean, see, like he looks like a guy that's almost bored in goal at times. And I think when I look at him, he's trying to do an awful lot with the kick-outs and with the distribution of the ball just to stay relevant nearly.
Yeah, trying to keep himself fresh.
Do you know what I mean? But, you know, and Alisson's coughed up a few this season for Liverpool. You know, I could probably count 3 or 4.
Yeah. Certainly the two against West Ham anyway, at least.
Yeah, he's had a few, you know. But whereas if I look at De Gea and I look at Ramsdale, they've, for me, been the 2 best keepers in the league, I have to say.
Because they've had to be. They've worked so hard.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're pulling off 2 to 3 world-class saves nearly every game. So they're the busier out. If you take the top 4 or 5 keepers, those 2 boys are the busiest keepers out there.
100%.
And in terms of match winning and keeping teams in the game, I mean, if you look at that Newcastle game, I mean, Newcastle could have been 4-1 up at half time and they wouldn't have even flattered them. You know, De Gea was unbelievable. But yeah, work for Rangnick to do it without a shadow of a doubt. And a bit of bad taste as well with Bruno and Cristiano strolling off. Not too happy at all. Palace 3, Norwich 0. Good win for our boy Patrick Vieira.
Great result for Palace. I shipped the lad Joachim Andersen into me fancy football team this morning. And he came good with the clean sheet for me. He's a very, very good player. He was on loan last season at Fulham. Palace have him this season. Really good centre-back. I'd be shocked if there's a number of the bigger clubs don't look at him. I mean, he would be ideal next to Ben White for Arsenal. I know the boy Gabriel's doing a decent job at the minute. But I mean, if you look at the boy Anderson, he's so good. He's physical. He's commanding. He's quick for a big guy, you know, deceptively. And listen, Norwich didn't cause them a lot of trouble, but I just think even when they're playing better teams, I'm looking at this kid Anderson all the time and I'm going, geez, this guy's a bit...
reading of the game is good, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm just like, this guy's a bit better than everyone else out here, isn't he, you know?
And a guy you rank highly as well, Edward, getting them on the way.
Yeah, I do like Oddison Edward, I have to say. Got the goal and 2 assists today again. So if you had him in your fancy football, he cashed in for you big time, you know?
Yeah, and I'm sure Norwich must have been thinking they might have had a good day at the office with Saha being suspended.
And there was no Conor Gallagher either. He wasn't in the squad. I don't know if it's COVID related or what it is, but he wasn't there either. So they're looking at no Gallagher and no Zaha. You're probably saying they're Palace's 2 best players, you know, and certainly on an offensive side. And you were probably thinking they might struggle here. Geez, they didn't, did they? They shot out of the blocks. Yeah. I picked Palace in. I've 2 lives left in the last man standing competition. I'm the only one left with 2 lives. And Palace, I was going to use Palace for both of the lives. I said I'll stick with one of them. And by half time I was like, that's grand. Into the next round, so
absolutely 100%. Southampton won, Spurs won. Southampton going down to 10 men. But I wanted to give you a fact that I realised today. As good as Antonio Conte has been at Spurs and how he has shored stuff up, he hasn't won an away game yet.
Hasn't won an away game.
Apparently, okay. I read that today.
Okay. I know something else I read today is he's the first Tottenham manager to go 7 games in the Premier League without a defeat. So I mean, there's definitely positives here if you're a Spurs fan.
Yeah.
I think they were lucky today, I have to say. I know there was a couple of disallowed goals and stuff like that, you know.
The one that was off by a slave.
That's close, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I think Spurs are very, very unlucky. I think Conte would have been massively disappointed. As a United fan, I'm obviously absolutely delighted because after dropping the points to Newcastle last night, you kind of think Spurs are going to stretch this out a bit. Now it gives us an opportunity to go in against Burnley, get a win, and we'll end up on the same 4 points as they picked up from the Newcastle. We picked up Newcastle, Burnley, and they picked up with Southampton and Palace. So it kind of levels things out a bit for us.
Yeah, and another man we regard highly, James Ward-Prowse, with a fantastic finish to open up the scoring.
Yeah, he's so good, Ward-Prowse, isn't he? I know Villa obviously had a massive bid in the table for him in the summer. And as I was talking to a couple of guys earlier, one of which is a Villa fan, and he kind of brought it up and he said, I'll be shocked if we don't go back from in January. He's a super footballer. He's playing way above the level where Southampton are. If I'm honest, for Southampton, losing him would be huge.
I think with the job Ralph has to do there at the moment, I don't think he can afford to lose anyone at the moment, or he could find himself in serious freefall.
I don't think so. But I mean, listen, here's the thing. Let's say Ralph, let's say they got 45 million for Ward-Prowse. I think Villa had about 40 on the table from right. So if you're talking 45 million, could he go out and get himself 3 15 million euro players and make it a big, addition to the squad? You're obviously looking to maybe pick up another striker who's going to get you a couple of goals, somebody that's going to create a bit of steel in that midfield. Like,
I don't know, 15 million pound players to me give you nothing but headaches.
I don't know. Like, I suppose I certainly wouldn't be looking in the Championship. Put it that way. I'd be looking further afield. I'd be looking to France. I'd be looking to Germany and stuff like that. To pick up, guys that are kind of robust and stuff like that. Like, there's really good signings available in the likes of France and Germany for that type of money.
It's just the time it might take to bed them in and everything and all.
And that's the one kind of negative I would say, unless they hit the ground running. By the time you start seeing the best of these guys are in the Championship, and I don't fancy anyone going into that Championship, who's played a good standard of football, because it's so tough and it's so dogged, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Watford 1, West Ham 4. Moyes bouncing back.
Yeah, I was a bit shocked at that now, I had to say. I thought Watford would have given them a much better game. I had 2 lives in my fancy football. I used one for Palace. My other life, because I used the top 6, i.e. The 2 Manchester clubs, Liverpool, and then the 3 London clubs, Chelsea, Spurs and Arsenal. So I used one on Palace, and my other one was a toss-up between Everton and West Ham. So I went with Everton on the basis they were home against Newcastle, who hadn't shown much form. And West Ham then obviously strolled to victory, and I thought, missed an opportunity there. But I didn't see it coming, I have to be honest. I thought West Ham would struggle there today. I think that's a massive win for them. And another guy
that Everton game is off as well, isn't it?
I've just seen it called off. I don't know what's going to happen there on the last man standing. But I think our boy we mentioned, we talk about him every week or two, Jarrod Bowen, another massive performance. Just adding another 0 onto his price tag. I know Liverpool are madly interested in him. Really, really heavy interest there from Liverpool for the boy Jarrod Bowen. He was a boy that I tipped when he left Hull, that I said United should have been in for. And there was a bit of a chat going on, we were picking up Dan James, and I was like, listen, for the money we're paying here, this kid's a country mile ahead of where Dan James is, because they went for similar enough money. I think Bowen went for 18, James went for 15, something like that. And thankfully I have it all in the conversational chats where I'm kind of pushing and saying, I want Bowen. Turns out now he's a very, very good player, and he looks twice the player Dan James does at the minute,
Yeah, absolutely. And then we rounded out with a poor result. Leicester 1, Liverpool 0. A game that I watched this evening. Liverpool, I'll be doing a match reaction on player ratings, but it was a very complacent kind of performance by Liverpool, very lackluster. No real proper drive. I know they created a lot of opportunities, but a lot of them were with very little purpose. Mane looks like he's checked out for the AFCON, and he's looked that way for a number of weeks now, to be honest. Very questionable form, missing some really great opportunities. Of course, we come up against Kasper Schmeichel in absolutely belter form, which is unbelievable. And I think you did mention, didn't you? You mentioned on the preview as well that this could come back and bite us after the Carabao Cup result. I just thought they'd have
a little bit to prove after the Carabao Cup. Obviously being 3-0 up, or 3-1 up, and kind of looking like they were home and hosed, and Liverpool reeling them back in, and then the penalties and stuff like that. just kind of thought there might be a little bit there where they go, do you know what? We need to go out and show that we're not the pushovers, because obviously they played a much better side tonight. I would argue the Liverpool side tonight was a better team than they had out in the Carabao. I don't think that's, there's no argument there. 100%. But I actually think Leicester had a worse side out tonight than they did in the Carabao Cup, and they were able to reverse the tables and stuff like that. So it's a big win. Rodgers was in a little bit of there was a few people mentioning things over the weekend after our City, thumping them, and he was kind of come out and he said, "This is my toughest time in management," and stuff like that. That's a massive result tonight for Leicester. Really, huge. Really is, huge. But also a big one for Liverpool, because I would have think Liverpool had that marked down the scorecard as 3 points and moving forward,
And maybe that's where that complacency came from. Maybe they'd one eye on Chelsea for Sunday, which is not the way to be pushing the league title through. It's supposed to be week after week. But now the gap is now 6 points with City, which is massive.
Do City have a game in hand now, or was that Liverpool's game in hand?
That was our game in hand, because we missed the game against Leeds.
So they were 6 ahead, and you guys had a game in hand, and you just lost it.
Yeah, we were trying to get it back to 3 again. So
they're six clear now.
They're 6 clear now. Yeah,
that's tough, because you've got to play them as well.
Yeah,
and I don't think anyone wants to play them in the form they're in at the minute. If they get anything out of that winner, that could be set. That could be, it might stay 6, might go 9. All of a sudden,
and they're not usually affected by the AFCON either.
Very little.
Yeah. Let's get into some of the hot topics I picked out today for the show, being our first Monday mashup on the new upper tier channel. The first one I picked out, I'd like to dedicate today's show to Diego Maradona's brother Hugo, who passed away. Died in Naples, age 52, from a heart attack. So we just send our condolences and prayers and thoughts and all to the Maradona family. Very, very sad. Very young as well, 52 years of age. He'll be dying from a heart attack, It's
absolutely. And I mean, his brother's legacy will live on forever. I mean, Maradona, what a footballer.
Yeah.
What a footballer, unbelievable.
You don't have to tell me.
I know you're a big fan of his. No, he's very special talent, Really, really is.
Yeah, I just thought it was sad at 52, especially with Diego. I think Diego died at 60, didn't he? So it's still very young, Let's move on anyway. Our transfer show will be returning this week. We'll be launching it again on the new channel with Dino, and I think Darren will be involved as well. But a couple of transfers that went through today. An interesting one, Ferran Torres. From Man City to Barcelona for 55 million euros. Where Barcelona would find 55 million euros, I do not know. It must be 5 million
just tell
over
me that
11
again?
years.
55 million
euros. Now, I'm going to say something here, and I'm sure you probably agree with me. I'm not too sure. I think that's a steal. I think he's an exceptional player, and I don't know what City are thinking.
I think he's a really, really good footballer. I do, and I know people are obviously listening. They're going, steal of 55 million. I think you're pretty close. Yeah, I don't think it's bad money at all. I've got to say, especially if you look at where Barcelona are at the minute. The addition of somebody like a Torres, who can create, who can score. He was very, very good in the Liga before he went to City. I think from a City point of view, I don't think you could say no to this deal. I mean, they paid 21 million for the boy. So, I mean, they've got more than double their money on a guy.
Treble.
And I know there's a couple of add-ons and stuff like that, and they're talking about one of the add-ons, which is about 8 million's worth of an add-on, being an almost guarantee because it's based on a number of games. It's not based on lifting trophies and stuff like that. Or, sometimes it'll be if he wins the Ballon d'Or, we'll give you an extra 10 million. That are very, very attainable, what's in the contract and stuff like that. I think for Barcelona, this is the start of the rebuild, isn't it? This is the first stone they're going to kind of put in place to try and help them get back to where they were. And this is a transfer I'm really sure that Xavi would have had a massive part in, because I think it's the type of player Xavi would like to see there at Barca. I don't think this is from the board,
Is this are you surprised that a Premier League club weren't in for him, or is this a case that he didn't settle in England and he wanted to go back to Spain? Or I know obviously City letting him go for obvious reasons because they've changed their style of play and he doesn't fit into that system. And we can't argue with the system. It's unbelievable.
And they've also freed up an awful lot of space, you know, in their budget because they spent 100 million on Jack Grealish. This basically levels the books for them. You don't know if you're City, are they going to go out in January and look for a striker? Now, I know Guardiola's come out and said, we're not going to go and do it in January. Maybe we'll, maybe won't. But if not, this helps balance the books for next summer. I think this is a clever move. I think it's somebody he knows he can maybe do without because he's got Foden, Grealish, Mahrez, Sterling, Jesus, De Bruyne, you know, the boy Cole Palmer and stuff like that, we know coming through. So he can let somebody like Ferran Torres go and not really worry about it too much. And like you say, get two and a half times the money of what they paid for it and make the balance sheet look better. You know, I think it's great business for Man City.
Plus, when Ferran Torres plays, he doesn't play like a front three. He plays more like a striker role, which doesn't fit into Pep's system. So, I mean, it's a kind of a surplus to requirement. But I would preface that by saying when he has played for City, he's nearly good for a goal a game. His accuracy and his shooting quality is unbelievable, you know what I mean? And that's why I said at 55 million, I think that's a steal. You know, like if he was at another, like imagine him at a Chelsea.
You see, I do have another little conspiracy theory. I think Pep knows what he's doing sending him to Barcelona. Because I think Pep to Barcelona is not a million miles away.
Really?
Yeah, I think maybe, you know, 2 to 3 years, Pep's looking at himself going, I've got to achieve everything I could have possibly achieved at City because I think they're getting pretty close on this Champions League, aren't they? I think this year will be their big roll of the dice at that Champions League. If he walks out with a Champions League and a league, does he decide to say, you know what, I'll have a little sabbatical here, and if it doesn't work out for Xavi, I'll walk down that road again and go back to Spain, go back to Barcelona and try and make that club great again and add an even bigger, you know, story to my legacy already. I think he knows what he's doing here.
Plus, I think if they're cruising in the league and continue to do so, they can focus on the Champions League because they won't be under any pressure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Another story that came into us today, a bit of sad news, not in terms of a passing, but Ben Chilwell looks like he's going to have surgery on the ACL now, which means he's going to be ruled out for the season. Was talking to Ian about it earlier, which is obviously a hammer blow to Chelsea because he was outstanding for Chelsea, and the amount of goals he was getting and assists as well from that position was incredible, and a huge loss for Chelsea. But sad on the lad missing out nearly on the whole season, and it could take even longer. I mean, I know when it happened to Virgil, he was out for a whole year nearly.
It's a horrible injury. One wish we wouldn't have wished on anyone. You know, you wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy. Chilwell's been absolutely superb for Chelsea. Really, really has. You know, he was that foil on the left-hand side where I suppose at the minute, all of the pressure now is on Reece James to create down one side because you don't have Chilwell down the other side. If Chilwell is there and then people have to step across the pitch and cover him, it creates space elsewhere. So I think by Chilwell actually being out, it's hampering what Reece James is trying to do because guys know they can just, it's coming down the right all the time. Yeah. I think it's something Chelsea will have to look at in January, by the way. I don't think they can go through the whole second half of the season with Marcus Alonso and no cover.
Yeah, apparently the talk is they're going in for Digne off Everton.
Okay.
Which is not a bad option.
It's not a bad option if he stays fit.
Yeah.
His injury record isn't great, I will say. Would that be a cash or a loan deal to be done? As in, is there money on the table? Or
I think if they're going in for him, I think they'll buy him. I don't think Everton will want to be loaning him out. I think they'll buy him, and the reason I think they'll buy him as well is depending on how the ACL goes. I mean, Chilwell could be out till next Christmas.
Absolutely, yeah, no, you're right. I mean, if he doesn't get operated on until January, probably at this stage, you know, you're probably talking. Are you going to bring him back? Are you going to bring him back in the Christmas period next year? I wouldn't think so. I mean, that might lengthen it to 12 or 14 months.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, it's going to be a long time.
And of course, and that's assuming that everything goes to plan. There's no setbacks around.
There's no setbacks. There's no infections. Everything heals properly. Absolutely. Now very, very tough. I suppose Luca Digne would be a great signing for them. Again, once they can get him on the pitch. But yeah, I suppose best wishes to Ben Chilwell. We've enjoyed watching him this year, I have to say. Been so good for Chelsea and for England, you know.
Yeah, I think Digne could be exceptional under Thomas Tuchel in that Chelsea side. I really do. When you see what a bright spark he's been for Everton, and at times a very poor Everton side, you know what I mean? He's really been one of the outstanding players for them.
I think he's a super footballer, but I personally wouldn't touch him just with the injury record. He misses an awful lot of games. Knocks, niggles, pulls, strains. I personally wouldn't, because he's getting on a little bit now as well. You know, he's not an absolute spring chicken. Is he about 28?
I'm not too sure. I know a lot of it at times is caused by the aggression of his play. And I know that's something that Tuchel would admire. But I think maybe if he went in there to Chelsea with a better quality of player, he mightn't have to extend himself as much in terms of what he has to do with Everton to make it work, which may be causing some of the injuries. And
we know how good he is. You know, his delivery is superb. Dead ball, corners, free kicks. Very, very good. Passes the ball well. Got a good engine. The one negative for me, and that's the only reason I wouldn't go near him, is the injury side of things. But from a footballing point of view, if he's on the pitch, he's top drawer. He is top drawer, you know, so you can't argue with that. Absolutely.
Another boy you've been talking about a lot recently, I know we're delving into a few transfers here. Kessie seems to be available out of AC Milan. Tottenham have emerged as the front runners. Not surprised with Conte's connections. They've offered him somewhere in the region of 6 million wages, but he's looking more for 8 or 9 million. So it'd be electric to see Kessie in the Premiership, wouldn't it?
Huge signing for Spurs if they could make it happen. Real big statement of intent. They've gone and got Conte. And we spoke about, you know, there being an agreement there with Levy to obviously open the purse strings a little bit. He wants Spurs to compete. I don't believe Conte's gone there to be an also-ran. I think he wants to go there and win trophies because he's a serial winner. Kessie would be an unbelievable signing for Spurs. That Spurs midfield doesn't light me up at all. You know, personally speaking, I like the boy Hallberg. After that, I'm searching. You know, I don't believe there's a second. I think Harry Winks is okay. I think the boy Lo Celso was very good at one stage, but the level has dropped, and I don't maybe think he's an Antonio Conte player because I don't think the work rate's necessarily there. I think he's much better on the ball than off the ball. But I think
you're right. I think when you're thinking silverware, you're going around the pitch, and maybe 5 or 6 out of the 11 will lead you to silverware, but you got to plug up all the rest, I think.
Yeah, and I think this is down the spine of that team. You've got Kane. They've just about got Hugo Lloris signed up to a new deal. So you got Kane and Lloris. You know, the addition of a decent centre back, maybe in beside the boy Romero and Kessie. All of a sudden, you're building a spine. You've got Son, you've got Mora. You know, you've got the boy Emerson Royale and Reguilon. They're starting to put something together here at Spurs. Kessie would be a massive signing for Spurs, I have to say, one which I would be very, very jealous of.
I was about to say that when I read this today, I was thinking, is that not the perfect deal for United to hijack?
I think from my
he's
point of view,
exactly what Ranić would be looking for.
You see, I certainly think it's what United could use, and I also think it's a signing fans would jump all over. I think they'd love it. I don't get the feeling it's what Ralph would want. I think he's looking in a completely different direction than Frank Kessie. Because I don't necessarily think Kessie brings what he's looking for to the table, which is extremely high energy. You know, that's what he wants all over the park. Kessie, as good as he is, I would say possibly the worst part of him as a player is that kind of stamina side. You know, I think 60, 65 minutes in the game, he starts looking extremely leggy. Now, he creates an awful lot. You know, defensively, he's good. He's strong. On the ball, he's just silk. He's absolute silk. And would I have him at United? In the morning, in a heartbeat. But I don't necessarily get the idea that that's what Ralph wants personally. I think he'd look at Kessie and he'd go, it would tick a number of boxes, but he'd look at one or two and he'd put X's in them. He'd go, not for me. Could be wrong.
Yeah,
could be wrong.
I often look at Kessie as being that box-to-box guy in that mode of Pogba playing for France.
I think personally, and I know we've discussed this guy quite a lot, and I thought he was nailed on for Liverpool. I thought Yves Bissouma was nailed on to go to Liverpool. I think with Ralph coming in and the way he wants to play the game, I think United will look more at somebody like a Bissouma than a Kessie. There's a difference in them,
Premier League proven.
Premier League proven.
In terms of the intensity and the energy.
It's the intensity and the energy. It's the energy. It's the work rate. It's the get. Like, he just seems to be everywhere. At times I'm thinking, is he the kid in the schoolyard that's just better than all the rest of them? Because every time I look, he's there. He's like Ryder Rovers. He's taking goal kicks, corners, throw-ins, penalties, free kick, without taking them, but he's just always there. Yeah. Whereas I see sometimes, and again, United played AC Milan quite recently, so we did see that. Kessie was very, very good at times, but it did bypass him a little bit at other stages. And I think one of the things that kills him is pace. And that's where I think he won't tick a box for Ralph. I know we've been massively linked with the boy Amadou Hadara from Leipzig. And he's a Mali international, if I'm right. And he is just all action. Again, not maybe someone United fans will rejoice about and go, yeah, we got Hadara. But somebody Ranić will go, I got him. I think that's, I don't think United fans, over the next maybe 6 to 18 months, depending on how long Ralph stays, I don't think United fans will necessarily get the signings they're looking for. But I think maybe looking at signings a different way, we may end up with a better team. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Maybe 6 to 12 months in, they'll get a better understanding of what he was thinking of doing when you see it on the pitch.
A few changes in the pieces of the puzzle. And also, you bring guys in that can do the job because they've obviously done it before for you. But also, when you look at it, again, we've spoken about United being Moments FC. Do we want, 8 individuals out there trying to do their own thing, which what it looks like at times? Or do we want 8 guys who all pull in the one direction, which is what something Liverpool have? You know what I mean? That's for me where we want to be. That's where City are. City are guys all pulling in one direction. City are guys looking around the pitch. Who's in a better position? My ego goes out the door for this. It goes out the window for this. At United, at the minute, ego is everything. I'm Bruno Fernandes. I'm Cristiano Ronaldo. I'm, I listened to Gary Neville last night, and I had to agree with a lot of what he said. And one of the things he spoke about was Edison Cavani and how when he's out there, Neville feels better about United because he's not a guy who's out there for his ego. He's a guy who's out there for the team and for the badge and for the shirt and for the fans. And that's why United fans love him, even when he doesn't take the chances necessarily that he should at times. His work rate is phenomenal, and he's a guy that's trying to do the right thing out there on the pitch. And that's all you can ask for.
You could see it last night, even at his age. You could see it. He was bringing the energy last night. And he was looking around all the other lads going, where are you guys? What's happening?
He's looking at guys.
Very frustrated last night. And you could see when he scored the goal, actually, how it released in him. He was very frustrating game yesterday for him.
Yeah, and I mean, I watched the game, obviously, and at various different times, there was so much frustration. Like, Rashford was just very, very poor. Fred, I'm a big fan of Fred. I loved the kid the first half. He was so poor. I don't think he made a pass over 10 yards. He was really, really poor. I think Bruno has looked a shadow of himself since Cristiano's come into the club. He was our guy. He was the guy, give him the ball. Now it's not. Now it's give the ball to Cristiano. And now Bruno's looking around going, I was this guy. Where's my ball? You know what I mean? I think it's unsettled him massively. Again, we mentioned this Ronaldo thing might not be a good thing for United, and so it's proven.
I called it right from the beginning.
You did.
Called it right from the beginning. But we shall see. It'll be interesting as we get into the transfer window how things unfold.
Yeah.
And we did have little hints, of course, of Rashford saying that he may not end his career at Man United. So you never know. There could be a change coming down the cards there. Who knows? Kylian Mbappe and Robert Lewandowski have expressed concerns about this biennial World Cup. And I delved down into the story, and it wasn't necessarily about the volume of football and the lack of player downtime and holidays and all that thing. It was about the devaluing of the tournament, that the fact that it rolls around every 4 years, it's a big event, it's a big deal. And, you know, I was thinking about it today and I could see their point, because I was thinking, imagine if we had the Olympics every 2 years. It wouldn't have that feel about it.
It'll be the European Championships, and the European Championships aren't watched the way the Olympics are. Fact. Yeah. Not just because it's Europe, but because anything, you know, when you widen the gap between anything, it makes it more kind of
you build a demand for it.
You build it, you know, and it's a little more, you're like, you want to kind of, is it here you build, you know. And listen, as wrestling fans, we know all about this, right? This is how stuff was built years ago in wrestling, and it was stretched out, and you were like, oh, when am I going to see this? When am I going to see this? Whereas now our problem with wrestling is, you know, the feud happens on a Monday night, and we see it the next Monday, and you're going, is that it? Is it out? You know, it needs to be dragged out. I listened to one of the arguments, and it's pretty similar to what the boys have talked about, and it's obviously a devaluing of previous competitions based on the fact that you're going to have this plethora of winners now. If you go to biennial and you have a winner every second year, what about the guys that had to wait 4 years to play in the competition? What about the guys that never got to play in a competition? Somebody like Ryan Giggs, because it was every 4 years and you only got 3 bites of the cherry in your career. You know,
unless you're Cristiano Ronaldo.
I absolutely hate the idea. Like, I hate it with a passion. I think when you look at the World Cup, when you look at how special it is, I mean, as Irish fans, you know, it's the mecca for us, isn't it, really? After what went on in 1990, like, I was born in 1984. I was 6 years of age when Ireland went to Italia 90. I was 5. I was going to be 6 in November.
I was doing my leaving cert.
You were like, I was just...
No, not that you think it, for our Spotify fans.
I was just living every single moment of it. I told you the other day, the first kit I ever got as a kid was a Packy Bonner kit. You know, I got my yellow jersey with my black Adidas shorts and my black Adidas socks. And I think we had to visit a couple of sports shops to get all the pieces of the puzzle, you know. But it was so special. And what it did for us as a country, and to then see that get normalized, and to be like, it's every 2 years. It's only every 2 years. So if we miss out, doesn't matter. We have another pop at the cherry. I don't like it.
The one thing I was thinking about as well is, I was looking at it and I was going, 2 years in the career of a footballer at the high end. So an Mbappe or a Lewandowski or a Ronaldo or whatever it is, or Mo Salah or whatever. It's a very short time in your playing career, 2 years. It goes by like that when you think about it. You know, and I was just thinking, it's so short that it'd be so difficult to build up the want and the desire for it. Like, you know, the way you think of the World Cup as being this big, colourful spectrum pageantry of football.
Carnival of football.
This is it, you know, when you get Brazil and Argentina and all the colour and the fan bases that goes with it and all this kind of great stuff. And the African teams that come in.
And don't forget, we get those countries that have waited years to qualify for a World Cup. And then you get to see Cameroon in 1990, Roger Miller, you know, you get to see that. You get to see Senegal go out against France, who are favourites for the tournament, and Senegal beat them in the opening game. You get to see all that. You know what I mean?
And the culture of the host country.
And the culture of that, like, all of that is devalued by the idea of, we'll do this every 2 years. Like, I mean, if you do it every 2 years, how does it affect the European Championships? Or are you playing a major tournament every single summer? Because if the European Championship is every 2 years,
it's going to have to be started.
Are you playing
the Nations League on top of it as well, and all this other stuff going on?
So now you've got Nations League year to year, you've got European Championships every 2 years, and then you've got World Cup every 2 years. Lads, give over, will you?
And we haven't even spoke about friendlies.
Stop the lights, will you, lads? These are ruining international football. You know who the real bad guy in all of this is? It's Arsene Wenger.
Yeah, what do you make is his Like, I mean, he seems very up for this. Is this him trying to leave a little bit of legacy or something like this, or what is it?
This is absolutely him trying to leave a bit of legacy. This is so people in years to come go, whose idea was this? Someone says, it was Arsene Wenger. And they go, right. So he's the clown we need to blame. Because this is, I have to say, touch wood, I don't ever see this happening. I think it would be, to the detriment of international football. I think the calendar, I hear today, and you have to, it's very subjective when you listen to this argument. I hear today, obviously, Klopp and Sean Dyche talking about player welfare and stuff like that. And I mean, like, I would certainly be a lot closer to Dyche's side of the argument here than Klopp's, just based on the fact that, Dyche is kind of saying, listen, these guys are so pampered, you have no idea. The level of, they're running tests on these players and training, so they know when guys are getting tired, they take them out of a session. They know when muscles starting to fatigue.
Very scientific now.
Everything is scientific. They've got, he said, a lot of the guys are private chefs, for cooking their meals and stuff like that, like, because they're on a level of money where they can obviously afford that sort of thing. You know what I mean? And they're extremely pampered. They're not getting on planes with other people. They're getting on private jets with their own team, flying to games, or they're getting on first class carriages, or they're on their own bus, which is like a hotel on wheels. They've all of this going on. They've never been as well looked after. And you're just thinking all they're doing is playing football games, like it's football, football, football. Now, I completely agree with the likes of Klopp when he says about, nobody needs to play 2 games in 48 hours. That's bullshit. Nobody needs that. There's got to be a 3-day rule in the Premier League. There's got to be a 3-day rule in the Premier League that you cannot play for up to 72 hours after you play the game. That's player welfare. That doesn't mean you can't play a certain amount of games in a year. If you look at the calendar, if you move the calendar about a little bit, if you play on certain weeks, you play a second game rather than, given a full week in between games, you cut that down and then you ease the games over Christmas and stuff like that. I think it could be done better. Towards the end of the season, we start seeing big gaps in the league calendar. Yeah. Where they start fitting in games maybe they got postponed in recent years, or clashes with cup ties and stuff like that.
Or you're out of Europe, or you're out of the cups.
And this year, obviously, they'll be used for the COVID games that were postponed and stuff like that. But other years, you've seen, a couple of weeks near the end of the season where teams have had 3 games in 20 days, and you're going, why didn't you use that time?
I suppose the argument holds weight on Klopp's side compared to Dyche's side is Liverpool, by and large and generally, will be competing for 4 or 5 trophies, whatever way you want to look at it, okay?
Absolutely.
Burnley typically are competing to stay in the league.
Yeah, they are.
And I know they have a cup run and stuff like that, and they have cup games and stuff like that. But when you get to, the Liverpool or United or City, look at City. City generally get to the latter stages. They win the League Cup most years. So they're getting to the latter stages and stuff like that, It's a lot of games. It is a lot of games.
It is. And then when you factor in the national football and stuff, it is. I do like our friend behind us, Ralph, throwing in his suggestion, which was any teams that are involved in Europe get a pass on the League Cup. I think it's a perfect idea. I don't think if you're a European team, you need to be playing League Cup games away at Doncaster on a Wednesday night. I don't think it serves a purpose for you.
Well, does it serve a purpose to your academy?
It does if you're going to use your academy, but so does your under 23s and your Premier League B team.
So you're trying to find a balance between not devaluing the tournament and being honest in it, if you like, and you could blood in a few youngsters. I mean, a number of really good players have come through into the senior team by being blooded through the League Cup.
Absolutely, absolutely. But don't forget, do we want to see City win this for a 6th or 7th time when it could have been West Ham, Spurs, Everton, Newcastle, all big clubs in their own right? Maybe they didn't get a bite of the cherry because, City were able to send out the second team, which is better than most teams' second team. But basically, when you're going out there, whoever's got the better second team in the league is going to win this thing. Do you know what I mean? Like if your squad is big enough and you've got an awful lot,
depending on your approach. Like if you're say for argument's sake, if you're Arsenal this year, and I know we've Arsenal in the semis. I mean, they haven't had the worry of European football and stuff like that, so they've been able to play mostly their first team bar injuries or whatever they've had to deal with and stuff like that. And they found themselves now in the semi-final against Liverpool. We've kind of played a mix of our kids and our good players when available, and we've gotten through to the semi-final as well. So I don't know. It's a hard one to find a balance, but I get it. It's easier for, if you like, the managers in the lesser end of the league who don't get involved in these tournaments right till the bitter end nearly, and don't have that volume of fixtures. Yeah, and don't have that. I mean, you look. If you think about, if you compare Liverpool to Burnley, we have all their fixtures, but we also have 6 European toys that we have to play as well, and that will be our first team in most of those toys.
You've probably got 10 European games, based on the fact you're going to roll through the first round of qualifying and get to the second.
No, but I mean by the time you get to Christmas or January.
Yes,
I'm talking about you've already played maybe 6, 8, 10 games more than a Burnley or something like that, depending on how far they go in the tournament. So, it's easy to say, these guys are pampered and they fly around in jets and they have their own chefs and all that. That doesn't matter if you're out on a pitch for 90 minutes in a battle with wear and tear. It doesn't matter whether you're flipping your own pancakes or someone else is doing it for you. At the end of the day,
I don't know. There's an awful lot to be said for having, the ability to not have to do anything, like around, or like, listen, if someone come into my gaff here and said, listen, I'll do absolutely everything in this house here. I'll cook your meals, I'll clean up, would my life be easier? Absolutely,
would you?
Right?
But would you be as sharp?
I would imagine I'd be even sharper.
I think you'd be less sharp, because I think you'd be more relaxed.
I don't think so.
You'd be more contained.
I think you would certainly have the ability to have more in the tank when needed, based on the fact your reserves weren't being emptied, taking bins out on a Thursday night, getting up to let the dog out on a Friday morning, bringing this,
But I find we've heard this argument that the teams that do really, really well, the likes of Cities and Liverpools and Chelseas and Uniteds down through the years, right? They have been the teams that have been kept the most active, who do the less training but the more recovery, because they have game after game after game, and it keeps them sharp.
Yeah, but they've also been the ones with the bigger budgets and the better squads.
Yeah, but I've also found as well, if you get on a run, like, winning is a habit. So if you get on a run, like, I firmly believe, I would put it out there, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think if we had played Leeds the other day, and we probably might have beat them because they would have had a depleted team.
Yeah.
I think tonight you might have seen a different Liverpool in terms of that lack of complacency, because we're on a roll, we're on a run, we're in game mode.
Listen, Ferguson and the lads at United always said they were better when they weren't training. They went from a Saturday or Sunday game to a recovery session, a tactical session,
to a game,
travel and a game, recovery, tactical, travel game, recovery, tactical, travel game, in that order. And they went 2 games a week and they rolled from one to the other. There's a lot of rhythm. There's a lot of guys, you play rather than train, play, train, so there's a lot to be said for it.
And there is a rhythm to a match, isn't there? Because we see it with City. When City play and they're on their pomp, you can see the rhythm that they have when Sterling's in there and all these different players and stuff like that. There's a rhythm to their play, isn't there?
It was the one thing that watching United last night was the standout for me. Like, having watched City against Newcastle, and the way that they popped the ball around, and the way guys took the ball into areas and knew when they got to a certain point, I push it, I keep moving, I drop a shoulder. The decision-making processes were very, very good. Looked at United last night, and I couldn't say that, because, they took balls into the wrong areas. They waited too long to play the pass. They didn't play the pass at all.
Which actually confirms your point when you talk about United as being 6 or 7 superstars. If you're 6 or 7 individual superstars, you never get into that rhythm. You never get into that dance of springing the ball around and knowing where people will be and all that kind of thing.
The listening last night to Gary Neville after the game, and you can't, whether you're a Manc or whether you're a Liverpool fan or whoever you are, you can't argue with a lot of what he says, because, he talks about United and how lads don't seem to put the work in. I look at Salah at Liverpool. I look at Bernardo Silva at City. I look at Kevin De Bruyne. I look at Mane or Jota or right?
Mm.
They're killing themselves. They're absolutely killing themselves. I didn't look at that United team last night and think, was Marcus Rashford killing himself? No way. Was Mason Greenwood killing himself and he was on there for 45 minutes? No.
Yeah.
Did Fred kill himself when he was out there? Put himself about, but he didn't kill himself. Was Dallo killing himself? Was Tellez? There was an awful lot of guys that were just ticking along,
going through the motions,
right, and expecting something will happen. We'll create something. One of those guys up the top of the pitch will knock one in, and we'll all be good. And the expectancy in
it's what I always talk about. That purpose in your play. There has to be a purpose to your play. That like every pass you do, every ball you put into the box, every switch of play has to have that purpose to it. It's not just, actually, I know he's going to be over there, so I'll just kick it over there. It's like you have to see a guy. Like you look at Cavani, who's lethal in that 6-yard box. You have to see him in there and pick him out, not just lob a ball in. And that's what I think. And I see it with Liverpool tonight against Leicester. There was a lot of just that, throw it in there.
I'll throw it into an area in the hope that someone's there.
It's going to be there.
Rather than, I see a guy making him. Because I must say, I'd say in that first half last night, I'm going to say 4 to 5 times, I seen United players really high make a move. And the guy with the ball didn't release it. And 3 or 4 times, what happened then? What happened then? The guys making the moves decided, no point making these moves, is there?
Yeah.
I'm not going to get the ball.
Yeah, you seen it especially with Sancho, didn't you? Sancho wasn't in tune with the game at all last night. Sure, he wasn't.
He only came on at half time. Like the second half, he certainly wasn't one of our worst players, I have to say.
His passing at time was bewildering, to be honest.
But I must say, I thought Rashford was dreadful. How he managed to get through the whole 90 minutes is beyond me. But there again lies the problem. If he's playing at Liverpool, if he's playing at City, if he's playing at Chelsea, does he get 90 minutes last night? Have you seen when Mane's had an absolute stinker? Have you seen him being hooked?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right. If Kevin De Bruyne was having an absolute stinker, if Foden's having a stinker, Grealish, 100 million worth having a stinker, did he get hooked?
Yeah.
Rashford's having an absolute stinker.
We've seen Grealish and Kevin De Bruyne on the bench.
Rashford's having an absolute stinker and gets 90 minutes. What does that say to him? That says, Marcus, you go out and have all the stinkers you like, son, because you're still going to get a game. Don't worry about it, kids. You're fine. Keep feeding the kids. Fuck out of here.
Yeah. Well, that leaded me on to my last point, and we kind of touched on it, was Ronaldo and Bruno Fernandes were slammed today for walking off the pitch down the tunnel, but also not going over to applaud the fans who had made the journey to Newcastle. I was listening to one of the channels yesterday, one of the guys off one of the channels, he was making a road trip up. He was heading up from London, picking up 4 fans on the way.
So what was he driving for? 8 hours?
Probably more, because he had to get to London first himself to pick up these guys. So I'd say it was quite a round trip. They were staying the night, because what he said was the night before, I think it was St. Stephen's night or Boxing Night for our other fans. He couldn't have a few drinks because obviously he knew he was doing the road trip, so he's going to stay over.
And he was going to be up early and stuff like that, and then obviously travel through the busy time of the day, most of it.
But I'd say his night was pretty round.
It like when away fans travel, they're traveling in a much smaller, group than to a home game. At a home game, United might have 75,000 of their own fans, and an away game, depending on the allegation, they might have 3,500. It's just about respect. Somebody's travelled that distance. Now, if the distance is 100 yards down the road going to City, or if it's, a couple of 100 miles going in Europe, go over at the end of the game, applaud your fans. I seen David De Gea go and give his jersey to a kid in the audience, which I loved, which we're seeing an awful lot more of these days. This is what football's about. We need to capture the imagination of the kids in the crowd, so that this kind of legacy, this what we love about football lives on, because now more than ever, we're fighting with generations of kids over iPads, Nintendo Switches, YouTube, Minecraft. And we're not saying they're bad. I'm not saying they're bad, but every kid that sits up with an iPad in his hand it's one less kid with a football at their feet.
Mm.
And we to keep the ball rolling, pardon the pun, like kids need to have their imagination captured by these footballers. And if it's as much as David De Gea going and giving a jersey to a kid last night, we don't know, 10 years, 15 years down the road, does that keeper end up playing in League 3, you know, in our League 2 or the conference or something for some shitty football club? But what captured it for him was that one night. And he goes, now I have a purpose. Now I know what I want to do. You know,
even if you're in a pub 20 years from now and you're talking about that and you say to your mate, then I have that jersey from David De Gea when he played in that game, and your man's probably turning around going, that was 1-1 and Newcastle should have bet just 4-1 or something like that. And he'll go, yeah, but I have the jersey from the guy who made sure it was 1-1 and it didn't become 4-1. So like it's very meaningful. I see what you get as well. And if that jersey handed out to that guy inspires that guy one day to be a goalkeeper, which me and you know very well is one of the toughest things to do.
Listen,
to find a goalkeeper.
I said it to you earlier when we spoke about the World Cup. From the time I saw Packy Bonner save that penalty, I was never, ever going to be anything else. And then, of course, I started following United, and we had the great Dane, Peter Schmeichel. And
I don't want to talk about Schmeichels tonight.
The first time I went to Old Trafford, I missed the goals. Because I sat looking at Peter Schmeichel. And there was goals going in down that direction. And I didn't see them because I was a little keeper. And all I wanted to see was what this guy was doing. All I wanted to see was what he was doing.
Yeah.
You know, so Schmeichel always had a thing where he touched the goalposts. He always touched both posts and the crossbar. I touched both posts and the crossbar. I always touched them the same way he did because he was my idol. I looked at him and I went, you know, if someone ever said to me, what do you want to be? I want to be Peter Schmeichel. So I'm looking at this guy. I missed the goals the first day we went because I'm so intent on looking at what this guy is doing. And my dad's going, kid, you're missing the goals here. And I'm like, I'm missing nothing there. This is all I want to see. Because on a game, what do you see? You follow the ball. You don't, you know, the camera just follows ball. So if Schmeichel's over here stretching in the 69th minute because he's getting stiff because he hasn't had a shot to stop, I'm going, guess what I'm going to do in the 69th minute next week? Right? I'm going to be down stretching. I'm going to be doing those heel kicks. I'm going to be doing that, right? So you pick stuff up. Again, you're inspired. And that's what this is all about, you know?
Isn't it just as well you weren't at that Toyebi game or you would have been a striker? I'm just putting that out there. Well,
he was man of the match in his debut against you guys. Do you remember?
I know, yeah.
We beat us 3-2, and he looked like a real find.
That was short-lived, wasn't it?
Himself and Mikel Silvestre played, but they both played in their debut the same day against Liverpool. We beat them 3-2. Silvestre had a slightly better career at United, but Toyebi after the game, the United fans were like, yes, we finally replaced Michael. 3 months later, thinking, Jesus, man, could this get any worse?
When I think of the Toyebi one, I was thinking today, I've been watching Prison Break again. I don't know if you're a Prison Break fan, but you remember when Abruzzi, he cuts T-Bag's hand off? And I was thinking, that's probably what Ferguson did to him when he got him into the change room. He probably said to Kane or whoever it was, stretch his arm out there now and guillotine them, I'd say. It was just unbelievable.
The one from Letitia was particularly bad, where he went in and it came right through his two hands, right through his body, right through his legs, and into the goal. And then I think the story came out was his studs were too long and they got caught in the ground. And I was like, what?
Well, they were always good for a story.
I was like, what?
So that one through the legs, it nearly brought his balls and all into the net with it and everything and all.
Oh my God. And it was,
and when you go back and look at it, you nearly look and think, how did the ball even go through there? Because he was kind of awkward, wasn't he? How did it get through?
On top of it.
Yeah.
It was like, I didn't believe that the gap was big enough for the ball to make its way through. Yeah. And then by the time it got through, surely there's not enough power on it to actually get it over the line. And it just trickled and trickled. Oh, listen.
Yeah. Only if I was a Liverpool fan, I would have felt horrible for the man.
Yeah.
And you would have been a striker.
That's it.
Well, listen, pleasure having you on as always on these Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday mashups.
Yeah.
Little bit of housekeeping. Our new channel is launching tomorrow, the Upper Tier. So this will be the first show to appear on it. And a fitting show it is, the Monday Mashup, which is our flagship show on the Upper Tier. You'll also find audio versions of our show are now in a new location on Anchor. We have our own Anchor now, so you'll find us there on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Music. We're already up there. We've been uploading shows there for about the last 3 or 4 days. As I mentioned already, the transfer show will be back this week. We're going to kick it off this week before we head into the official window because there's so much activity going on at the moment. And we're also going to be bringing back, we're going to be having a look at a couple of extra shows this week because it's the Christmas period. We're going to have a look at combined 11s. We're going to have a look at the player of the season so far. And we're going to have a look at the flop of the season so far, the flop signing, which should create interesting debate between the 4 of us. Mark and Dean will be joining us tomorrow night, as far as I know. Fingers crossed, touch wood, nothing happens between then and now. And it should be an interesting debate, especially the combined 11, because I know that will generate some interesting debate between the 4 of us. Until next time, my friend, the upper tier on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, the upper tier, on Twitter at _upper_tier, and you'll get us out there for audio, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Google Podcasts. Till next time, my friend, a pleasure.
Thanks, brother. Talk to you soon.